views and opinions expressed by hosts, invited speakers, and callers do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the Black Talk Media Project or the Black Talk Radio Network.
Well, some people like to dismiss slavery like it was nothing. But you see, slavery, it can never be forgotten. Some people not gonna like what me say, but me I gonna say it anyway. We are gonna talk about slavery and the effects of it today. Some people just don't want to know about 400 years ago. But the thing about slavery, it's affecting people now. I tell you no lie, when I see a film about slavery.
Peace and welcome to the Abolitionist Daily. The daily report on the situation here in America, this domestic colony that we find ourselves living in, called the United States of America, where we discuss modern day slavery, also known as mass incarceration, also known as the judicial system, the penal system, the inner workings of law enforcement, who started their tenure in the United States of America back when it was still the colonies as slave catchers. Straight up. Might as well get that out the way as we start the program. You might as well get down to brass tacks. The police started off as slave catchers in America and expanded into day and night patrols and expanded into patrolling the cities and became incorporated as modern versions of themselves as policing forces. But it started as slave catchers. So it's difficult to imagine the police ever having truly appreciated the value of non-white life just based on that. So all the Black Lives Matter talk or what have you is probably kind of going on deaf ears with a lot of the police, just based on who they are and what they come from. So we talk about policing, slave catching, attempted kidnapping that goes on that doesn't end well, and these are extrajudicial murders. So we talk about the police out here killing people in the streets, because not everybody makes it alive to the plantations. We talk about the judicial systems, the prosecutors running and gunning, trying to get convictions, racking up convictions for political points and for career high points and stats, and not being particularly mindful of the cost in human life and the cost in community destruction of trying to convict every single person that comes in front of them, as opposed to trying to help people, trying to enact and carry out justice. So we discuss those things. We discuss, obviously, the actual prisons themselves and jails, the modern day plantations. Some of them actually started out as plantations, especially, obviously the South was the slave states. So all throughout the South, several of these state penitentiaries actually began as slave plantations back in the day and were owned by slave owners. The land was owned by slave owners. And the slave owners were sometimes the first wardens. We talked about in the state penitentiaries of the history of Alabama on this program. The first man that owned the land that the state decided back in the late 1830s, I believe it was 1832 or 39. I don't remember the exact date, but we talked about it on the program a couple of weeks ago. The first gentleman that the state approached about his land to build a penitentiary became the first warden. So when we talk about modern day slavery, we're not just whistling Dixie, as they say. We're not just joking around. We're not just stretching terms into hyperbole to fit our narrative so we can be leftist apologists for crime and all this other crap. I read people try to respond to what we're saying. If you know the history of America, if you know the history specific to law enforcement, if you know the history of slavery, even a thumbnail sketch, if you know the history of these states and their own personal state constitutions, and you know that even states that did not have slavery and territories that did not have slavery, when they adopted the 13th Amendment, they adopted slavery. Because on this program, what we talk about is that 13th Amendment. And that 13th Amendment is pretty straightforward, pretty clear. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude. We're not doing it. We're no more slavery. We're done. You know, 1492 to 1865 is long enough for us to have all these people that we're done. We're above that now. This is a God-fearing, God-loving country, and God has prospered us with all this bountiful land and natural resources, and we have safety and security from our enemies and all of this land to explore and to establish ourselves as a sovereign nation, leading the world into freedom and democracy, into the future and into infinity, America. So we're going to stop now what we know is a wrong practice of slavery. We're going to stop it. No more slavery here. Except if we punish you for a crime. Convicted of a crime, slave. But don't worry about that, because all you got to do is not commit crime and you'll be fine. So that's what we talk about here on Abolitionist Daily. These list of topics today, April 15th, 2015. We're going to be discussing what is being marketed as and promoted as some landmark decision by newly reelected Mayor Rahm Emanuel in Chicago, that the city will be paying reparations to victims of the notorious crooked cop known as John Burge. This guy got away with torturing people, beating people. Hell, they probably killed some people in custody, truth be told, and we just don't know what. You know, these are people whose bodies were found in alleyways or something somewhere, and they chopped them up as unsolved murders. I mean, this guy is a straight up troll, man. He's like a for real demon. There's no way you can carry on like these people carried on for decades and you're not an evil person. I don't care what he thinks or what anybody thinks about me classifying him as such. He's an evil individual. They started out using electric shocks and burning people and playing out mock executions to scare people. Now, these are innocent individuals, mind you. This is your son or your daughter getting snatched off the street by the goon squad, taken away to secret locations like this Holman Square they just discovered that everybody in Chicago seemed to know about before, but now it comes out and it's, oh, well, yeah, it was there, but we didn't shut it. Well, John Burge is just that guy. He's the guy that was operating the jump out squads and the torture squads from the 70s all the way through the 90s. This is why I say he must be some kind of an evil person. Because, yeah, I've made mistakes in my life. I've done stuff I shouldn't have done. I've told a lie before. I've misled people before and did what I wanted to do and left and tried to get out of the responsibility of it. I've taken things before. I've taken things that weren't mine before. And I immediately got caught up and realized that I shouldn't have done that, and I learned a lesson. I grew up and, all that type of thing. I've done bad things before. But doing bad incidents and making mistakes and having a bad day or being in the wrong crowd or getting caught up in things you didn't know and you're ignorant of it, and all those different ways of breaking it down is nothing like being a grown man with a 40-year career in law enforcement, and you spend most of that 40 years torturing people, and you rack up hundreds of arrests that lead to convictions of people who are completely innocent, and they're still fishing people out of the prison system because of you. That's evil. I mean, what are we setting the standard at? If that's not evil, what are we setting the standard at? We call Adolf Hitler evil because he oversaw torture of people and wrongful imprisonment of people and even the death of people. What else did he do? So what does a guy got to do to be considered evil? I think this guy qualifies. So we're going to talk about John Burge, one of the from the Slave Catcher Hall of Fame. He goes right on into the Ring of Honor for his exploits. We're going to talk about him a little bit just to give you some background on who he is and what was going on with his operation. But the news is that Rahm Emanuel announced on Tuesday that April 14th that the city has reached an agreement to provide a sweeping package of reparations to victims of the notorious Chicago police commander who for decades ran a torture ring against suspects. So it's about the reparations, and there's 55 individuals, and we'll tell you how much they're given, and then you tell me if you think it's any justice, and you tell me if you think it's gonna stop anybody from doing what he was doing. I mean, there's nobody. He went to jail, but not even for what he did. So we'll get into that. I got plenty of good material on that. I'm not even going to start my rant yet. But outside of that, then we're going to look at another Chicago tragedy. The murder of a 17-year-old kid named Laquan McDonald. It occurred last October, 2014. And we'll get into the details of what he was allegedly doing and whatnot. And the police had gotten away with basically saying he was a violent criminal and, the usual defamation and so forth. But now video has surfaced of what actually happened. And the police in the city was somehow able to get control of the video. And they are attempting to stop anybody from really watching this video and publicizing this information and putting it out there. And one way they're trying to shut that down is to just go ahead and give the family a $5 million settlement so they'll go away. So anytime the city is giving away $5 million, the ghetto lottery is racist white supremacists and ignorant individuals who parrot their talking points love to call it. They're giving away $5 million for killing this violent criminal that, was attacking police and all these reasons why the police justified shooting him 16 times. Yes, he was shot 16 times. And now the city's looking at giving them some money so they'll hush and go away and we could just sweep this thing under the rug. So we're going to talk about his story and about the city going about doing what it's trying to do. And all of this is in light of the current story that everybody is still keeping an eye on, the Walter Scott murder, and somewhat connecting it again to the Walter Scott situation. There's a new dash cam footage that came out from the cop, Michael Slegla, that tasered another guy, Julius Grant Wilson, who's been trying to sue the city and been trying to bring charges against him for brutality, and he wasn't getting anywhere with that. But now that the video footage comes out of showing the cop, same cop that abused him, is on tape, shooting this man that's running away from him so many times in the back, murdering him right there in broad daylight. Well, now that that's out, this guy's finally getting some airtime, and we can find out more information about our continuing theme overall on this program, the Abolitionist Daily, and on our central program, the flagship program, New Abolitionist Radio. Myself and my comrades have been saying since day one, Ferguson is America. Ferguson is not an anomaly, and it took Eric Holder putting out that Department of Justice report where he said himself in the report, "We surely hope that this is just an anomaly." And the first thing we all said is, hell no, it's not an anomaly. You gotta be kidding me. His own Department of Justice did reports in other cities. They got cities they're investigating around the country right now, and they've already investigated several others and found out that Ferguson is America. And we're going to talk about how North Charleston is Ferguson. So you see North Charleston mayor coming out, and they just want to promote love, and they bring out their local black preachers, and come on, black people now. Don't go off now. Don't come on now, y'all. Now we got to keep a level head now, and let's just remember your Jesus, dude, and let's just keep the peace and let these good peoples carry out their justice, and we know that the Lord don't tear nothing up. And then you come back out and say, oh well, yeah. Well, also you might have heard that this guy's wife was pregnant, and you know what? Hey, he's wrong, and he did wrong, and we fired him. And we arrested him, and we charged him with murder, and he's a murderer. I mean, you saw it just like we did. He hasn't been convicted yet. He's on his way to being a slave soon enough. But you know, his wife is pregnant, and it's not her fault. And it's not the baby's fault. We're going to take care of the family. We're going to make sure that she's covered and her health insurance is covered. And so we're seeing all of these things coming out of North Charleston, and none of it makes sense, and it's all confusing. And then we find out the racial demographics, and we find out the very similarities between Ferguson and North Charleston, and it all becomes clear. So we're going to present those things to you today. We're also going to look at a few more news headlines. Got some more information on private prison profits. I'm salivating. I check every day in my seeking out. I'm checking day waiting for the next GEO Group and Corrections Corporation of America quarterly earnings meeting. I just want to know so bad, what do they got planned for the rest of the year and going into an election year? You know, what do they got planned? So I'm watching that. So we got some updates on that type of thing. And before we get into the news and before we get into our first break, I want to read a column that impressed me today from Salon.com. It's a young lady named Brittany Cooper. She's one of the contributing writers at Salon, and she also teaches women's and gender studies and African studies at Rutgers. And some of the things she said in this article really hit home with me. I mean, I immediately, when I read it, I immediately thought, I want to lead off the program today with this and really set the table so everything else we discuss, you can see the connections. That's all I really ever want. You may hear me rant for, 2 hours straight. You may hear me cursing. You may hear me, trying to paint pictures and giving personal histories. You may hear me do all sorts of things on here. I come from all kinds of different angles. I'm always just cycling ideas and thoughts through my head of how can I get it across to you? What's going to be the spark? Because fire is what we need. We agree on that. There's no doubt. We need fire to create change. We need a chemical change. We need an actual change in the element that we're currently dealing with. And fire is a change agent. We need people on fire so they will change. And then they infect the society around them and create change. Because they're on fire. Now they set everything else on fire. And change comes. And renewal can begin. So that's what I'm after. If you're cold, I can warm you up, but you're lukewarm, so I gotta smack you around for a couple hours to get one way or the other out of you. And when I read this, I immediately could see what she was saying, and she painted the picture well to me, so I want to share it with you. It's Salon.com, and I'll put it on the page a little bit later. The title is Blood Money, Killer Cops, How Privatization is Funding the Racist Logic of America's Police. And she asked the question, what do police violence in Oklahoma and New York City have in common? An infusion of private cash and a culture of death. On April 2nd in Tulsa, Oklahoma, a sheriff's deputy named Robert Bates shot and killed Eric Harris, a man who was fleeing a crime scene where he was about to be captured for selling illegal weapons. Bates, a reserve deputy who is allowed to work on cases because he is a big donor to the sheriff's office, was charged this week with second-degree manslaughter after claiming that he meant to reach for a taser and not a gun. As Harris lay struggling and dying, he told the surrounding officers, "I'm losing my breath." One officer yelled back at him, "Fuck your breath." Then he insisted that the man be handcuffed. The words "fuck your breath" encapsulates in only 3 words the systemic disregard that police regularly show to black people in America. Just last week, we watched Michael Slager execute Walter Scott in South Carolina for daring to run away. Now this week, we are also tuning in to the trial of former Chicago police officer Dante Servin, who is charged with involuntary manslaughter in the killing of 22-year-old Rekia Boyd. Shout out to my man Cortez, her brother, going through it. In the case of Eric Garner in Staten Island, Tamir Rice in Cleveland, Walter Scott in South Carolina, Eric Harris in Tulsa, we've seen video of law enforcement officers not only critically injuring citizens but also refusing to administer medical care with fatal consequences. Given the origins of policing in this country and their connections to slave patrols and other forms of racialized social control, I'm under no illusion that the police have ever held black life in high regard. Police complicity and participation in lynchings and in the KKK make that clear. Just like we told you about Florida just last week, and the guards there, KKK members, putting out a hit on a man who served his time and was back out in the free world. They were putting a hit on him, setting him up to be an unexplainable black death, setting him up to be like these lynchings in Mississippi, like the lynchings in North Carolina, like the lynchings in Delaware. Just be some black man with his body found and it looked like he committed suicide. They were setting him up. So luckily somebody stepped in and heard about it and set him up in the sting and caught him. They still haven't been convicted, but I mean, they've been arrested and charged with this, so we'll see how it goes, but these are KKK ties. And shout out to the students down there. Oh, what was it University of South Florida? It was one of these Florida schools. They actually protested down there and called out the Florida Department of Corrections on their ties to the KKK. So shout out to the grassroots. You know, put it in their faces. They like it. They like to do it behind closed doors. They like to wear their hoods and masks, and they like to have their associations and their friendships, and they like to allow these people. I can pretty much guarantee you that if I go in a 3-piece suit and a bow tie, and I come in, assalamu alaikum, and to the interview, they're going to put a check on my resume and tell me they're going to call me, and I'm not going to be getting hired. It's just that simple. If I come in as a member of the Nation of Islam, if I come in, shalom, shalom, I'm Hebrew Israelite, I'm with the Israelites United in Christ, or, one of these known or, like larger groups or something of known Israelites or whatever in America, where this is black separatists, I'm not going to get that job. Hell, my social media name is Johanan. I mean, for all I know, I could apply for a job and not get hired right now for the name and for what I put on my social media. This is known and accepted. We've talked about plenty of times in this country, the names on your application. A somewhat black seeming name. They did the experiment where I think it was a black woman changed her name or whatever on her applications and started getting calls back to beat the band. And she had gone some months without ever getting a call or whatever with, her, I don't know what her name was, but I mean, we know that this is the case. And we know that the police are complicit in this type of behavior is what she's saying too. I mean, they allowed this Florida Sheriff's Department fired a couple of people for, and it wasn't for them being KKK members. They just found out they were KKK members. They got in trouble for something else and then they just blew out the whole thing. And it's really not against the law for you to be a KKK member, because the police come out and protect them when people have marches and when they have their marches. Max Parth is down in South Carolina. They're always down there with that state capitol with the rebel flag flying. And they have their clashes, and black police officers are always there in the picture protecting white supremacists. This is America. And the police forces allow this. They allow this to proliferate. They allow this in the departments of correction. And they know the history of how blacks and people of color, period, and different ethnicities and different religious beliefs. And if you're not white, Aryan, white pride worldwide, whatever, they're against you. And they allow this to go on. But the explicit, tacit refusal of black people's rights to breathe is still significant. The fact that the Tulsa Sheriff's Office is a pay-to-play force is significant. The fact that white men can sign up with government approval for the right to play cops and robbers on the weekends is appalling. The Black Lives provide fodder for state-sanctioned sport. This should have us in the street. That old man paid for a goddamn safari. That's what he did. He was a major donor to the sheriff's department. They allowed him to come in and play cops. And he paid them for his privilege to take a safari. Maybe he's too old and he's too frail. He couldn't travel however many hours it takes to fly to Zimbabwe or somewhere where he could go out into the bush and kill a lion, a giraffe, a zebra, and an African too, and put all their heads on his wall. Maybe he couldn't get over there. So he realized he didn't have to go anywhere. He could get a black head and get it on his wall right here. Just tell me when you got a good one. Oh yeah, I'll let you know. Man, I've been in sales for years. I know how the game goes. You got those difficult customers. You got that person that's just your homie. You're not rushing them. You just tell them, man, when a deal comes, I'll let you know. I know what you're looking for, especially when you're selling a used car. Especially when you're looking for somebody that has a limited budget. Especially when you got somebody that has special needs of some sort. It's not a rush. You give them time. And you promise them, I'm going to keep looking out for you. Just stick with me. I'm going to find what you need. And when I get it, though, you need to come holler at me, because it's going to be a short time thing I can provide for you, but I'm going to find it one day. I'm here every day. One day what you want is going to come through. I'm going to call. You come on down and you can get your deal. That's how business gets done. That's how this old man killed himself a nigger. Somebody knew he wanted to pull that trigger. And all the cops that were involved were obviously jackasses, brutally beating on this man and shoving his face in the pavement, and knees on his skull and in his back, and beating him and holding him down. And look, you set him up. You didn't come in and put in a job service center. You don't have any services you're offering. You don't have a drug addiction treatment center. You don't offer any counseling, any psychological, any mental health assistance, no food assistance, no housing assistance, no programs, no training, no vocational training, no teaching, no education, no spiritual help. You offered nothing to the man except to send a police informant snitch in, a drug addict that you like, that's your friend some kind of way, that you were willing to work with some kind of way. Send him in to get high with the guy and go back and forth buying drugs between the two of you. He buys one time, then the other guy buys, and then so he trusts him. And then the guy says one day, you know what, man, I need a gun. And who knows how long he resisted, but he eventually gave in, and then you trapped him. On camera, he came and he got in, and you're the guy that wanted to buy the gun from him because he just knows the guy needs a gun. And here he comes with the gun, and got the crack in his pocket or the meth or whatever they're doing, and you trapped him. And you feel like you got the right to beat him and call him all kind of names and threaten to kill him, and then here comes your safari buddy, blows him away. So we'll finish with this article when we come back. We got to take our first break, but I think you see where we're going with this. She's painting a good picture, so I want to set this up as our foundation. We'll take our first break. This is the Abolitionist Daily. This is Johanna and Elia. We'll be right back.
You are tuned in to the Black Talk Radio Network. For podcasts and live program scheduling, visit us on the web at blacktalkradionetwork.com.
Okay, we're back. This is the Abolitionist Daily. This is Johan and Elia here on the Black Talk Radio Network. And before we continue, I definitely give this time after the first break every day to remind you good people that all of this that you are hearing and all the programs that you enjoy, all the information that you learn, all of the conversations you engage in, the debates that you get to have, the enlightenment, the spiritual upliftment, the awareness, the education, all of it is made possible by you, by the listeners. This is a community-sponsored radio network, an international operation, actually, as we are heard in several countries around the world, in an ever-growing audience as we see the numbers month after month. We see thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people, 20, 30, 40,000 people tune in month to month and listen to all of the programs. We have a great following. This is an internationally ranked website and radio. We're real. But it's real and it has real costs. It can't just exist on prana. Just the sunlight will feed us. We need donations to the 2015 fundraiser. BlackTalkMediaProject.org, BlackTalkRadioNetwork.com. It's plain and simple. We need the donations. We have a goal. We're moving towards it. So definitely thank you to all of the people who have donated to this point, because you're making a huge difference. You have already helped us to finance our operations in ways personal to this program even. This is what it takes, is us working with one another. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you've made a donation and you know who you are, I'm on the radio right now with you and giving you this information based on donations to the fundraiser, as well as individuals who have given from the goodness of their heart to even help me get this up and going. This takes equipment and cables and sound boards and headsets and different, things you need, software and whatnot to run just to be able to do this. And the network itself has these same costs, the bandwidth, the websites. All these things have costs to them. So we're not having a fundraiser so we can rent out a yacht and go film a rap video. We're not trying to go spend money and go do things of any sort of personal whatever. None of that occurs here. This is 100% on the board. You can see for yourself. We use the money to expand the network around the country, because you should have a Black Talk Radio Network station where you live. There's nothing stopping you. And you should be telling us there's plenty of hours in the day. I don't have to do 2 hours. If you want to come on and do a program, and I'll give you an hour of my time. Instead of me doing 2 hours, you do an hour from where you're at. Somebody in Delaware, somebody in Reno, somebody in Minneapolis, somebody in Dallas. Pick up an hour. I don't have to do 2 hours. I'm doing 2 hours because there's time and there's plenty to talk about. But if you want to tell us what's going on in your city, I will gladly yield to you the time if this is the time you need. I'll help you. Scotty's definitely going to help you. It's a family. It's working relationships. You can depend on people. You can trust people. We're here to help the community be built all across this nation where we are in a domestic colony. If we don't, as black people, help ourselves, we're never going to get anywhere with this. It's not going to work. The systems that are put in place by the dominant society are never going to work to our advantage. I shouldn't even have to tell you this. I think you know the deal. I think you see it, what we're talking about today on the program. These issues that we're discussing, this is all showing you that it's not going to just work out for us magically. We're going to have to do it for ourselves. We are in a colony. A colony is a particular kind of institutional or social system, and it doesn't necessarily have to be tied to a specific disposition of territory. It can take a variety of forms, but domestic colonialism in this country is what we are living under. You can have colonies where your country controls nations, like all through Africa, the colonies, South America, all through the colonies, But here in America, we are a colony of black people, and we don't have access to the majority society unless we are doing their bidding, unless we're doing gangster rap and talking about kill a nigga and whatever you want to say, all that, then yeah, you got access. Come on in. We'll give you a big contract with Universal Records, and we'll put you on the radio, and you can help us push the prison plantation system, because these Negroes are going to do what we tell them to do when we play your music 24/7. You have the opportunity to combat that. I was just in a conversation just this morning with hip hop fans, young people, teens into I'm 40. I mean, people my age, a little bit older, whatever. We all came up through this hip hop generation. We all came up through rap music, hip hop, all of that. And we're having a discussion about the Black Lives Matter movement versus what are we going to do about boycotting the music that's steadily coming out that's saying Black lives don't matter. So these are the conversations we should be having. These are the kind of things we should be discussing and enlightening people and helping people understand how to come to the point of self-love and self-appreciation and community appreciation and breaking away from individualism, which can only serve white supremacy in the dominant society's economy. Individualism does not help us. It helps them keep us as slaves. These are all things we should be discussing on our own networks, with our own power, with our own access, with our own hours, with our own sponsors, with our own everything looking out for us. That doesn't mean we don't like anybody else. That doesn't mean we're offending anybody else. We're treating anybody else wrong. We're barring anyone. Nothing of the sort. It means we're looking out for ourselves, which is what every single freaking person on the planet other than black people seems to have no problem with doing. It still amazes me to this day to know that the two leading conversations about racism as it applies to the modern day slavery situation, the modern day penal system and justice system, the Black Lives Matter, the police extrajudicial murders, all of the things that are affecting us so severely in America, the two leading conversations and commentaries that come out about that in the last year that I've heard from anybody are from two Asian American women. Angela Chan wrote for the Huffington Post the story about how America never abolished slavery. Naomi Murakawa sat up here and gave us a thorough breakdown that I still haven't heard anyone challenge, and I haven't heard anyone give a better explanation of Eric Holder's racial profiling guidelines, which we saw immediately exampled in the non-indictment and the investigation by the feds of Darren Wilson. Within weeks, his racial profiling guidelines were put to the test by the city of Ferguson, and Darren Wilson walked away a millionaire. Free. And these are Asian American women. We need Black Talk Radio Network to foster and to raise up and to train up and to teach and to inform and to enlighten and build up a voice for ourselves so we can speak on these matters for ourselves as authorities. We don't need the Huffington Post to tell America. We should be telling America. We don't need Angela Chan, though we love her. We love Naomi Murakawa. These are abolitionists. But we don't need to put ourselves in a position where we have to rely on them to do the work we should be doing for ourselves. Angela Chan is not in an ethnic group from a society, from a culture of a people that represent 12% genocidally maintained over centuries. They represent about 12% at any given time of the nation's population, but consistently represent 60, 50, 60% of those incarcerated on the slave plantations. That ain't her deal. But she knows it and she tells it. You know it. You're living it. It's your children. You should be telling it. So when I talk about supporting the fundraiser, I'm not just saying just give us money so we can go do what we... I'm talking about you get involved too. Where's your voice? Where's your program? Do you know how many people over the years I've heard on Blog Talk, startup shows and disappear, pay those fees and try to get into that whole deal they got going on and disappear, and it's just nothing. Here you're going to be working with people that are going to help you create and produce and maintain, and we want you to be a voice here. We're going to help you do something. So it's not just a fundraiser for all the people that just want to listen and want to give money like this is NPR or this is PBS or something like that. It's not just for that. It's for you that need to get your voice out too. Support the network until you can get your act together and get on the radio with us. Till you can set up in your city. Till you can empower the youth where you live. Until you can be a voice for the elderly in your city. In my city right now, there's a need for a voice for the ministries, for the homeless, for the older people, for the youth most definitely. God only knows we hurting in Kansas City. One of the highest murder rates per capita in the country consistently, Kansas City. Truancy and violence and vandalism, and kids don't have any kind of systems in place anymore. There's no more funding from the city to create any kind of environment for the youth to have any alternatives to do anything. They get out of school and they roam the streets, get into trouble. These are things I'm working to put together here in my city. That's why I'm a part of the network. It not only empowered me to get this program, to be on the program with Max and Scotty, to get my own program up and going for the national audience, and then also establish local programming. We gotta follow the steps and we gotta rebuild people. So I'll stop ranting about it. I'll stop going on and on. I think you get the message. It's so important to me to get this across to you. Support the fundraiser, blacktalkradionetwork.com. blacktalkmediaproject.org. Go to the websites, on your phone, on your tablet, whatever you got to do. Go to the websites, make a donation, number one. And then contact us and find out how you can be a voice where you're at. There's so many brilliant people. And you have the time to do it. You do have the time. You might be wasting it doing something else. You might not be managing your time like you should, but you have the time. The children need you. The old people are suffering and need you. The mentally ill need you. The homeless need you. You see what we're talking about every day? We never run out of stories to talk about. People getting caught up by the police, people in the prisons, people being abused, people getting killed. They need you. So make a donation. Contact us. Let's see if we can get you started where you can start doing this and talking about it where you're at as well. And let's build up a community. We don't even have a community now. We're just in a domestic colony. We need to build a community. We're not going to make it. Plain and simple. We're not going to make it. So back to this story. There's something about the logistics of self-governance under the terms of neoliberalism that make this moment feel more pessimistic than our trite narrative of linear progress on racial issues would have us conclude. So she's saying we're not post-racial. Bottom line, I know she had to get words for to fill the story, but she's just saying America is not post-racial. Bottom line. In 2012, the United Arab Emirates gave $1 million to the New York City Police Foundation. Yes. Gave $1 million to NYPD. According to the NYPD spokesperson, the money was used to upgrade equipment and aid in criminal investigations. What the hell, man? I didn't even get to talk about that with you yet. I saw that a couple days ago and I discussed it at length, but I didn't get a chance to discuss that with you guys on this, on the program yet. I just don't understand that. I don't know. I want to read this. So according to the spokesperson from NYPD, the money was used to upgrade equipment and aid in criminal investigations. In both New York City and Tulsa, private funding of law enforcement significantly impacts the way local policing is done. In Tulsa, it results in the pay-to-play scheme. In New York City, it allows for large infusions of cash donations whose specific uses do not come under public scrutiny because they are private funds. So what, they give a special prosecutor to New York if they were to do that, and if they did it along the lines of what the people wanted. And if they got oversight that they wanted. See, this is how they're steps ahead of you in the things that you're trying to do to reform and the baby steps you want to take and the blows that you want to strike that are just light touches and like those. Like, you ever had a cat or ever had a dog and it's playing with you? I mean, obviously a dog could bite you hard and hurt you. Most of them, I mean, you got a Rottweiler or something, you got a Pit Bull, a German Shepherd. And you play tussle and tug with the rope or whatever, or the chewing toy, and he's kind of acting like it, whatever, and he plays with you because you're the owner, you're his master or whatever. He's not looking to attack you and kill you, so he lets you play, and you play, and he's having fun, and he tugs and all of that. And that's what we seem to think we're doing with the powers that be. We seem to think that we're in control. We seem to lie to ourselves and make ourselves believe that they respect us so they won't hurt us. We can just play with them. We can tug and tussle a little bit. Come on, give us oversight. Come on. Give us a special prosecutor. Come on, come on. Arrgh. These bastards have already bit your damn hand off. Straight up savage rip. This is not your puppy. This is Cujo. So when you play these games, like a little bit of reform here, a little bit of reform there, we need to lessen the numbers a little bit. Let's decarcerate, let's go for, 10% in the next 20 years will be good. Then we're doing something, aren't we? Full crime has been going down for over 20 years straight. And even when it reached the so-called fever pitch, for all we know, it was artificially pumped up then. People are not just walking around given to criminality. Even in abject poverty, that is still not what the masses just run out to go do, is go commit crimes to eat. You ever read The Grapes of Wrath? Has America ever been in the Depression before? America ever went through hard times? And so we're not in a country that we're just given to crime. And every time you look at the numbers, they all have to tell you the same truth about the facts of the stats. Crime's been going down for a long time, for decades. And in spite of crime steadily going down, sentencing is steadily being ratcheted up. New laws are steadily being written and put on the books. New ways of sending people to jail and prisons are being invented every single day. And this is another way that they're inventing to persecute you and me while you're playing chew toy. They're doing like them dogs used to do back in the civil rights movement days. This is them kind of dogs. This ain't Rex. This ain't King. This ain't Butch or Sparky. You don't know this dog's name. Well, you know his name, but you rarely want to call him who he is. But yeah, this is his dog. And this dog is like them dogs in the civil rights movement days. Biting women's breasts off. And biting men's genitals off. Those dogs. That's what these people are about. While you play your game. We can't keep being in this situation where we keep giving them reform options, control the narrative options. We come in, we on a scale of 1 to 100, we need a 99 minimum change. And we come in offering them a 20. And then they negotiate with us, and then they bring back a 10, and then we agree to a 10. And a 10 is a nothing on a scale of 100. You're getting nothing. And we're making little tiny changes. And it's not really changing anything for real. I won't keep on. It's just sad that we're still not seeing it. We're seeing it, but we're still not really accepting it. We're dealing with the dogs that attacked Philip White. That kind of police dog. Where they kicked him and beat him and left him laying, and then they sent the canine in on him. And the canine ripped his face off, and he died laying there in the street. We're not tussling with the rope with Buffy. This is a deadly situation. And like she's telling you in this article, these people, we got outside private sources paying. So, okay, I've spent all the time I've been on this program so far, and I spent a lot of time on New Abolitionist Radio over the last couple of years, discussing very specifically and explicitly that funding that outpaces anything you could ever provide is what is leading to your enslavement because it benefits someone else. So we've painted the picture for years now of corporate interest lobbying your lawmakers, actually putting forward your political choices. if you really want to get down to it, you're not voting for anybody that you chose. You're not. We're looking at the presidential campaign shape up now. Do you really believe the leading candidates that are coming out are people that you could touch? Somebody you chose? I had a lady just last night, actually, because I started getting into this Bill Clinton deal, like picking him apart. But since Hillary wants to run, and like I told you, the move to abolish 21st century slavery, our Facebook group where abolitionists come together and we work on actionable events and procedures, and we spread out calls to action to help our incarcerated brothers and sisters when they're in desperate needs. I mean, it's an action group, so we're not just there just a cool kids club or whatever. We actually try to put forward action in the move to abolish 21st century slavery and human trafficking group. So check us out if you're on Facebook. But yeah, we've put forward this thing now that we're going to be working to evaluate the presidential candidates since this political season, and we're constantly telling people you need to be politically informed and have a demand in your hand, not just go vote to keep the other guy from getting there, not just to go vote for the lesser of two evils. You need to go with the demand in your hand. And what we're going to do is to popularize the abolitionist movement and the idea of abolitionism in this day of mass incarceration, modern day slavery. We're going to evaluate these candidates as they pop up. We're going to identify them and define them as according to their record on modern day slavery. So this is where we're headed. And so in that state, I was researching some on Hillary Clinton, and obviously you start with the most popular thing we all know about her is her being married to our former president, Bill Clinton. And even though I read and study, I admit I was a little bit, I knew, because I didn't even vote for the guy. I knew something was wrong, and this was my first election. Clinton, Bush, Perot was my first election, 18 years old. My first election, and I just never liked them. I got a lot of family in Arkansas, and the ones that I trust and that I like and can relate to didn't like him as governor, did not like how he got down. There was information coming out about black folks being murdered and killed in the drug trade, and he was possibly connected in some kind of way in the drug. It was so much stuff coming out. I'm like, there's no way. We already got Bush. He was a part of the first, the deal with the Rick Ross and the, Contras and Reagan and going to war. This guy's adversely affecting my future. I had a West Point appointment waiting for me. Full ride. One of 8 given from my area in the Midwest. I had a full thing to go to West Point waiting. And the war situation made me back down after consultation with my family, my dad and my grandfather, both vets that were drafted and went through hell as draftees. My dad was on his way to college, had a full ride himself, on his way to university. And got that letter, greetings. And he doesn't have a chip. He told me what it did to help him, and it benefited him in some ways, but it also pisses him off that it set back his life like that and put him at risk like that. And he still has lasting effects from that. My grandfather the same way. Sent around the world to come back to America and still be called a nigger and forced on the slave plantation and sharecropping and still fighting and getting cheated at the end of the season and all those things. So we had those discussions, and I'm blessed I had those discussions with informed and upfront, honest men that told me, you can get in there, you can get in wherever you want to go. So check out some other scholarships. We'll be proud of you if you go, but if you don't, no hard feelings. And so saying all that to say, Bush had me where I definitely wasn't voting for him, because look at what he did to my own future. I'm not going to Desert Storm for you for this. Killing people for this. It was a serious life-changing decision. And Clinton the same way. I don't know you. I don't trust you. The drug history, the money. He left his campaign. I remember that. He left his campaign to go watch the execution of a brother. It's like, it just was surreal to me at the time. And I definitely couldn't vote for him. Perot was the only one who had some money. It seemed like if anything, he's got billions. So, I don't guess he'll rip us off, but he just didn't seem to be cut from that same cloth. So I figured, I'll vote independent, man. And that was my first election. So I never liked him. So I'm studying a little bit about Bill Clinton. And it kind of tripped me out, but not too much. I guess I should have always expected it. But Bill Clinton was the most incarcerating president in American history. When William Jefferson Clinton took office in 1993, he was embraced by some as a moderate change from the previous 12 years of tough-on-crime Republican administrations. The criminal justice statistics show that it was Bill Clinton who implemented arguably the most punitive platform on crime in the last several decades. In fact, tough-on-crime policies passed during the Clinton administration's tenure resulted in the largest increases in federal and state prison inmates of any president in American history. Although Republicans are normally thought to hold the tough-on-crime mantle, in President Clinton's first term, 92 through 96, 148,000 more state and federal prisoners were added than under Reagan's first term in 80 to 84, which was only, and it was also 34,000 more than were added under Bush's first 4-year term, 88 to 92. Reagan added 129,000 new prisoners to the federal and state prison ranks. Bush added 243,000. So he just doubled down on the crime. So are you seeing the narrative? This is why I get into these tangents and talk, because it's all making a very clear painting and a picture for you to be able to see. Now it starts to make sense. The rise of the private prisons. The rise of the private prisons was the beginning of the end for people of color, for immigrants, for the mentally ill. And it's not coincidental that the Corrections Corporation of America was founded in 1983. Ronald Reagan's first term. People, this is what we're dealing with. You talk about RICO, like they just got those Atlanta public school teachers on RICO and put them all in jail and big old fines and all these thousands of hours of community service and people going to prison for real for changing test scores. This is a criminal conspiracy to extort and to enslave millions of people, and it is working to perfection. When Bill Clinton included the war on crime as a major tenet in both his 92 and 96 presidential campaigns, the past 10 years had already witnessed the largest incarceration increases in the nation's history. During 92 campaign, to illustrate his resolve, President Clinton actually interrupted his campaigning to return to his home state of Arkansas to oversee the execution of mentally retarded death row inmate Ricky Ray Rector. Throughout his tenure, the Clinton administration consistently supported increased penalties and additional prison construction. The Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994 provided state and municipal governments with $30 billion to add 100,000 new police officers, to build more prisons and employ more prison guards, as well as funding for more crime prevention programs. The money and resources spent by government and private interests on the criminal justice system is so large that it's having a profound effect and impact on our economy. In 1994, just 2 years after Clinton took office, there were 1.4 million prison and jail inmates in the U.S. By 1997, the criminal justice system employed more than 2 million people and cost taxpayers more than $70 billion a year. One estimate suggests that by 2002, the criminal justice system cost taxpayers more than $200 billion annually. Today, there are more people working in the criminal justice system than are working in community and social service occupations like employment, vocational training, mental health, substance abuse counseling, etc. Ironically, those are the same occupations that are most likely to be geared towards actually preventing crime. Just the facts, just the stats, just the information, just the education, nothing but that here on the Abolitionist Daily. Let's take a break. The phone lines are open. The number to the program is area code 712-775-7035. The access code is 367526#. Hit *6 and then number 1 and you will be on the air. We'll be right back.
Network.
And we're back. This is the Abolitionist Daily. This is Johan and Aliyah here on the Black Talk Radio Network. Gave the number before the break. We'll give it here coming back in just to keep everything going. 712-775-7035. Access code 367-526#. Hit star 6 and 1 and you will be on the air with us to share your thoughts or ask any questions or tell me shut up, I don't know what I'm talking about, or whatever you got to say. We welcome all comers. So I went off a little bit into a tangent discussing Bill Clinton and the rise of the incarceration state because whatever reason I was talking about that. But we started off in that direction discussing privatization and how private funds is what drives all of this. And we've discussed it at length about the prison system, and now we're seeing people that are able to, and the evidence is coming out. See, I'm a man of faith, and I'm not ashamed at all to discuss that. I got an opportunity to speak here. I'm going to use it till it's over. I'm a person of faith, and I'm taught in my faith to ask, to seek, and to knock. You ask, and it'll be given to you. You seek, you will find it. You knock, and the doors will be open to you. So what we do here is not just ranting and fussing and bitching and moaning and complaining and presenting all the problems and no solutions. No, we present solutions too. Just most of them you don't want to listen to. You don't want to adhere to. In fact, you really don't want to do anything but just hear and then move away unchanged. But we discuss these things from that standpoint. I do, definitely. I know my comrades are also doing the same things, discussing these things, looking for answers. Knocking on doors, getting doors opened and finding new information. And that's what we're seeing happening in the cognitive narrative that's going on right now. The nation's understanding, the information that's available to us, the big conglomeration of all networks of information coming together to produce knowledge and information and educate us on what we're really dealing with. This is the matter of the asking, the seeking, the knocking coming to pass. So we ask, who's doing this to us? How is this happening? Why is this happening? And on we ask these questions and we're getting the answers. Who's doing it to us? United Arab Emirates sending $1 million to the NYPD. The same NYPD that has killed thousands of people over the last 20, 30 years. Evidently, the United Arab Emirates are cool with that. That's how they want it to get down. So we don't know who they're looking out for, but they are paying for the upgrade to military hardware for the NYPD. They are paying for the drills that they do. Like the 2 cops were sitting in the middle of a drill that were killed. Here a couple of months ago, the NYPDs to put the wings on the pigs or whatever they're trying to say. Yeah, they were running a drill. These things have to be funded. So when you got a benefactor like the UAE, an entire network of multi-billionaires, just throw you $1 million to do whatever you want to do with it. And we're here on the Black Talk Radio Network doing all we're doing, and we're asking you to give. So we got a fundraiser goal of $60,000 to operate for a year. There's grassroots organizations all over this country that are operating on shoestring budgets that are somewhere around $1 million to employ hundreds of people that do endless research, produce world-class reports and information and put all this information out there and try to make a difference in our society. And here you got these pigs out here, criminal as hell. Cop after cop after cop, prosecutor hand in hand, throwing people's lives away. Rikers Island full of people been there for years. All of the corruption, criminality, abuses, people getting evidence planted on them, people getting murdered. We talked about Kamani Gray the other day. I mean, just on and on and on. And then you got somebody like UAE comes in and just here to take $1 million. This is why we can't win. We need to come together as a collective and put up our own $1 million to fund our own fight against them. The hell are you doing giving $1 million to the most criminal police organization we got in America? Yeah, I said it. Just because you haven't been convicted in the court of law don't mean you ain't a criminal. And when you're breaking the law, and when it's a matter of pattern and practice, and when it's a continuing conspiracy, and on and on and on, all these other things that define criminality, and you just get away with it, that doesn't mean you're not a criminal. And the same thing holds true with these people like we're talking about in Tulsa, taking money from citizens. Now you tell me you think, I mean, it's like with the old man, what was the guy out there with the Clippers that went off telling her don't, Donald Sterling or whatever, you know, and people are kind of like, man, I mean, honestly, he's an old man, so what do you expect? He's not racist. Seriously, he's an old white Jew dude or whatever with billions of dollars. I mean, and he's basically a slumlord. He basically owned a bunch of rental properties that he could just screw people out of the money, and he amassed himself, you know, a lot of money. And he bought into the Clippers cheap, and they became a bigger and bigger brand, and he's got billions of dollars. But he's still an old racist old bastard, isn't that? I mean, that's his right to be that way. But what you don't need to do is take him and give him a gun and a badge and let him play cop on the weekend, Tulsa. I wouldn't give a damn how much money he has. What the hell are you doing giving this dude a badge and a gun so he can play reserve cop? He can play junior G-man. You know, like I said, they set him up. They knew he wanted some action. And those cops that were there when Eric Harris got killed. It's basically like you watch these deep sea fishing shows and they got these guys, they're noobs, they don't know nothing, but they got the money, so they rent a boat. And these fishing guys take them out off the coast into the Gulf or whatever, out into the deep water, and they feel like they're doing something. They got these big rods and they got the whole thing set up. This dude's steady popping beer and in the sun and just waiting for it. And when they get one online, fish online, they bring them in, they wear them down a little bit, they get them into the current, and they get everything perfect. And then they let the guy strap the reel to his belt, and then they strap his ass to the chair so he don't get snatched overboard, and they let him catch a big fish. It's a safari. Guys in the Jeep riding around, they driving through the outback, they looking, they see, oh, well, there's one. And they chase it for a long time till it gets tired, and they run it out the bush. When it tries to hide, it goes up the tree, they get it out the tree. It tries to get back around his family members or other animals they run it and single it back out and get it back out there. And run it down, and it's exhausted, and it's insane, it doesn't know what's happening. And they corner it, and then they give the gun to the great white hunter, and he blows a hole in it and takes a picture next to it and gets it mounted, and he's a champion. That's all this is. You pay to play. You paid for the right to kill your prey. This is all because of these private funds. So her overall argument is just talking about the Black Lives Movement and just talking about how overall in America, how we just marginalize black life. And I mean, I could get into that, but you already know, there's no point in really going too much further into that aspect of it. And I want to talk about the other stories, but hopefully you understand some light was shined on those situations specifically, and you can understand privatization across the board. You're basically privatizing the police forces. And we know that there are police forces that we've heard tell. I don't know if these are fringe stories that have been told. I don't know if these are kind of conspiracy-ish type websites that maybe sometimes tell us stories that they found some pieces and that we don't get the hardcore evidence that we need to really make it something we're going to put our name on. So I don't know if those are those kind of stories, but we've heard reports of various local municipalities and law enforcement agencies and, to varying degrees having declared themselves private companies and being for hire and this type of thing. So I think America's definitely headed in this direction. And when you have situations like Tulsa where, an individual can pay, or when you got situations like NYPD where entire nations are willing to give millions of dollars. I mean, I don't know to what end. I don't know what they support or what they do, but they sure as hell didn't give them $1 million just because they think they're great guys. They gave them money for some reason. So I think it's important that we highlight this type of information and try to bring it to your attention just the same way as we highlight the information about the privatization of the prison system overall and the lobbying that goes on. And like we told you about the lobbying that went on to create the Animal Terrorism Act or whatever, the Animal Enterprise Terrorism Act, where you can't even go and talk bad about companies that do business with animal companies where they kill and torture animals as a matter of, but you can't even talk bad about them enough to where they lose money. If other companies decide to not do business with them, you can be prosecuted under that. And we talk about people who are actively being prosecuted by that law, and that law was created by private interest. That was created by private money. They paid for the right to create that legislation, and it's on the books, and it's being enforced, and it affects American lives. So that's the point of all of that. So we'll move forward. I think we actually may have a call here. Let me check and see if this person on the line wants to come on the air. Hello, area code 386. You're on the air.
Hey, how's it going, man? I just discovered your show, and I'm dumbfounded that this was actually going on, man. I'm so very happy to hear someone of your intelligence and of my complexion talking so intelligent. And you know, I'm actually trying to do something similar to what you're doing, but independently on my own. No grassroots funding, just on my own. So I'm definitely down to donate to what you get ready to go on and do. I just discovered you guys. Well, I'd have been giving you some money. Now I know why I just discovered you, because you're talking the way I think. But I just want to bring up some points, man, relative to Bill Clinton. I was taking notes listening to you guys. You're independent, am I correct?
Yes, sir. This is 100% community sponsored.
Oh, no, when I say independent, I mean relative to your political views.
Oh, you mean it? Oh, yeah, about as independent as you can be. Yes, sir.
Yeah, no doubt. I was checking what you were saying. And in fact, I was thinking on the hip hop shit, because I was like, that's what I do. But anyway, this guy, Bill Clinton, also repealed the Glass-Steagall Act. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, sir. Deregulated the banks.
Okay, so when people vote, and which I do not vote, I don't vote because of personal beliefs. I have no faith in this system, nor have I ever. But anyway, that's a different point.
So
these people are criminals, man, and what you've been looking at for the last, I would say, 60 years is the systematic destruction of their own system. Now, so what black people and people of color have to think is, if they're destroying their own system, where do we fit now that we no longer have a place here as slaves? And if you think about that, because our time card in terms of America has been used up long ago. They've been trying to figure out what to do with us since slavery was over it. And they've been figuring out to just kill us. That's really the plan that they have. Second point I'd like to bring up: the Emirates are pretty much paying reparations for 9/11, in my mind. Now that you say that, what you brought up, I didn't know that. Relative to the New York City Police Department, them cats are criminals, biggest criminals on the planet, and everybody else is down with them. And did you know Michael Jordan invests in the prison system? Did you know that? That's one of his main feature points of investment. Did you know that?
We've been discussing that and kicking that around for a while. If you have any, straight up lead us to the point information, definitely I appreciate it, because we've been wanting to go that direction of popularizing that more and more, but it's so shadowy. So without having the direct, when you call out Jordan, you need to have, the smoking gun for real. So I want to be able to be sure we got something we can tie him to it. And if you've got that, by all means, brother, please share that, because, we can.
Oh, man. I wish I did, because I was floored when I heard it from another. I don't know if I want to say I heard it from another radio show. I don't want to mention the radio show because I don't know your, but it's a great show, similar to yours.
You can give him love, man.
Okay, Shot 97, Star Buckwild. He's
okay, I know what you're talking about.
Show. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a bugged out show. My man is ill. I mean, he comes from a different perspective, but it's a extremely informative show. It's relative to political and social views. His views are interesting. Your views to me are interesting, and I don't know if maybe we can link somehow offline or whatever. I want to continue listening to your show. I'm actually working right now, so I can't stay for too long. But I would love to link with you some kind of way. And get into some stuff I'm doing, and also I want to donate to your effort as well. So I don't know how to do that. So if you could, we could figure that out.
By all means, we're all over social media. So our Twitter, is up, New Abolitionist Radio. Our Facebook, we're New Abolitionist Radio and the Abolitionist Daily. Both.
Okay. Yep, and I see the donate right here on the page. And okay, bang bang, I see that right there. So I could just hit the donate button and go from there. Then.
Yep, and if you want to connect and talk about your personal, what you're looking at doing or whatever, I mean, you can hit me on, like I said, on Facebook, on our Twitter page.
Do you have an email address? Because I'm a man of 43 years of age, and I really don't. I use the Facebook, so I don't like to rock with it, though. You know what I'm saying?
I understand.
It's whack to me. I don't rock with it. If email be, if you have it.
Our email is New Abolitionists. So abolitionists plural. New Abolitionists Radio at gmail.com.
Okay, let me just spell this out. Thank God I'm looking at the site because I cannot spell. Okay.
And it's on
sure I got this.
Too. Mm-hmm.
Yep, it's right at gmail.com, right?
Yes, sir. And I check it pretty much every day, a couple times a day, because a lot of people are like yourself, are not, so much really worried about the social media, but we can usually catch people with email. So definitely reach out, send me whatever information, you want to share, and I will be back and forth in contact with you. And I mean, that's what we're here for, is to build. So I appreciate the call.
Awesome. So let me spell this out for you if you got time. NEWABOLITIONS at gmail.com.
Sounds right.
I think I missed the T.
No.
Okay,
yeah.
cool.
ONIT.
Okay.
TS. Yes. There's a T there too.
T. Okay, cool. You're gonna see it coming from Slave Camp at gmail.com. Don't freak out when you see Slave Camp. That's a metaphor.
Okay.
All right, my brother. Hey, man, keep doing your thing, man. I'm listening to you, bro. Rock on, man. Peace.
All right, peace to you. So there you have it. Young brother says he just found the program. We have another call on here, area code 414. Did you want to share in with us today?
Oh, yeah, definitely. This is Rob checking in from Milwaukee.
How you been, brother?
Man, it's very stressful right now. I was just chiming in. I was in agreement, already with everything you're saying. But Milwaukee has been under, I would say, extreme pressure. We had, so many shootings within, the last 48 hours. And this is what the mainstream media would call black-on-black crime, which is just people in the concrete jungle fighting over resources. But
and until if I could interject, until they are solved to our satisfaction that they're solved, we don't have any guarantees that it truly is black folks doing this.
I definitely agree with that. With them drive-by shootings and everything. If we not seeing somebody pull the trigger, we don't know who killing these people.
Right.
But we had a particular situation that I wanted to just shed a little light on. Mm-hmm. And because right now we have a lot of black people blaming each other. If we would just pull our pants up and, as Gus say, clean our fingernails and, what have you, that, we'll stop getting the boot on our neck. They'll let the boot up. Yeah. But we had a situation where a 41-year-old man hit a toddler, 2-year-old. Toddler darted out into the street. Mm-hmm. The 40-year-old man stayed at the scene crying, remorseful. Somebody in this family come out, shoot the man dead, close range, and in the process of killing him, shot the 15-year-old brother of the 2-year-old. Okay? And I'm a little frustrated because becoming less confused, I understand that white people are most to blame for the chaos that we living in. And man, I'm just really getting tired of us blaming each other for this condition that we in. This just insanity, man. And I just wanted to just chime in with that, man, and just kind of let people know what's going on in this Milwaukee area. It seemed like since that national report has come out about Milwaukee being the worst place for black people, we holding true to form.
Yeah. I feel for you, brother. You in my prayers. I mean, it's real in the battlefield, and y'all got that good old black sheriff up there too. So it's gonna be hard to make changes come because they feel like they're already doing something for you. You've got a black man as your sheriff. I mean, why can't you get it together?
Yeah.
You had a straight up racist redneck white boy up there, Yosemite Sam, clicking his heels and pulling out his pistols, then it would be one thing. You could address it in a certain way. But here you've got a proxy racist that's in place, that's running the county and operating the county for them, and you see the numbers are what they are, and it's difficult. I mean, it's like, okay, we gave you affirmative action. What else do you want? You know, we gave you a Negro there. What else do you want? So,
right. Yeah. So,
put you however we can, definitely from the grassroots. You know, I mean, I've given you the email before. You still got the email. I mean, if you want to connect some kind of way, we can continue to put Milwaukee out there in the spotlight. I mean, bring attention.
Let me get that email one more time, please.
It's New Abolitionists.
Okay.
Radio. That's the name of the main program we have. New Abolitionists Radio at gmail.com.
Okay. You faded out a little bit right there. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. New Abolitionists Radio at gmail.com.
Okay, radio at Gmail. All right, yeah, I'll get an email sent out, man. I'm just trying to stay hopeful at this point.
Yeah.
Hey, you
got hope.
Like,
you know, you still talking to the abolitionists, man. We got hope. Just hang in there. We gonna do this.
Yeah, I want to chime in one more thing about this that 73-year-old racist that shot that guy dead. Oh. I don't think that was any accident.
No.
Like you said, I think that, you know, they're getting paying to basically go on a safari, so-called, and I wanted to tie it in with what Brother Scotty tied it in to that Purge Anarchy movie. You understand what I'm saying? Where you had these wealthy white people that would basically pay to hunt people in this maze, man, and that's exactly what seems like is going on right now.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? It's just so sickening to my stomach, man, to see us keep dying and we running around here confused, man. Just so confused. You understand what I'm saying? Blaming each other. And, like, the reason I'm chiming in is because Milwaukee right now is such a pressure cooker. You understand what I'm saying? We really want to hurt white people. You understand what I'm saying? But we're taking it out on each other. You know, and that's just my personal opinion. Because if you living in this world, you cannot not see what's going on. You got to see what's going on. So, y'all don't want to take up much more time, man. Thanks for letting me chime in and get that off my chest. Can you hear me? I'm going to fade it out. Brother Yana? Brother Yana? No, what? Hello?
This is Brother Elliot, host of Time for an Awakening, and you're listening to Black Talk Radio Network, new media for the new millennium.
This is Monroe, North Carolina. The town where local NAACP president Robert Williams created headlines when he said, "Sometimes violence must be met with violence." Many asked why.
You know, we do whatever we do to survive. Right?
Drop it!
Some of the people who had thought that it would be better to settle these cases violently, I had been able to persuade them that we should use the courts and go into the courts. So this thing had boomerang, and I was being held responsible for having brought these cases to court. There was a trial where a Negro maid had been kicked down a flight of stairs by a white man, and that this man hadn't even bothered to come to his own trial, and that he had also been acquitted. And there was a demonstration as a result of this in the courtroom by the Negro women of the community. And they had approached me and had said, well, you said that you would see that these people would be punished because through the organization we would have competent counsel, and that if it hadn't been for you, that these people would have been punished. And they wanted to know what I would recommend that they do from then on. And so I recommended that they meet violence with violence, that Negroes must be prepared to repulse attacks, that they must be willing to fight, that they must be willing to die and to kill if necessary, that there was no law, there was no 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution of equal protection in the South, and that therefore they didn't have any deterrent, so they would have to create the deterrent force themselves by meeting violence with violence.
And we are back. We had a little extended break there, some technical issues. Ultimately, we had what you heard on the broadcast and caught on the podcast forever. We had 3 young black men come together and discuss and build and share ideas, and that was cut off. But we're back, so, you know, it is what it is. This is the Abolitionist Daily. We're still rocking hard. The number is 712-775-7035. The access code is 367526#. Hit *6 and 1. You'll be in the caller's queue. We've been discussing the privatization of our police systems. We've been discussing privatization of prisons. So I feel like we went in depth on those things and got quite a bit of revelation. We discussed briefly Bill Clinton's role, and as our caller added to the conversation as far as his role in expanding the private prisons and expanding, you know, criminality and incarceration rates beyond any other president in the history of America. Brother also brought up the fact that he deregulated the banks. He repealed Glass-Steagall, which he did. So we saw the modern depression that hit us. Was it 2008? We saw the bailouts and all that. That was all the result of that. The subprime loans and the trading that was being done and speculative trading and all this type of thing. The bubble that they built was created in the wake of the repeal of Glass-Steagall, which was something Bill Clinton did. Bill Clinton created or signed off on NAFTA and GATT treaties. The matriculation of middle-class jobs right on out of America to Mexico and to other countries around the world, which really just ultimately, as I've discussed on this program before, what those things did, it was not so much that they took the jobs south of the border or opened us up to doing this trade south of the border or whatever. And it's not so much that they opened us up to sending our jobs to these other countries, around the world or what have you. Yeah, those things happened, but that was just the immediate. That was just the short term. That wasn't the real play. This is chess, people. This is not checkers. What they had done was already set into place, as we told you. Reagan Corrections Corporation of America, founded 1983. And we pointed out in Ronald Reagan's term what he did to increase the prison populations. 129,000 inmates in his first 4 years. Bush, 243,000. Clinton, 277,000. What they did was began an effective stockpiling of slave laborers. And then they put in place the private prison companies that would start to farm out these slaves to their plantations. They already had a working model with Unicor. They already had a working model with several of these prisons, state prisons, labor programs, and what they were doing to build and create. But it wasn't, it wasn't anywhere near as thoroughly incorporated into the corporate landscape as it has become. So you have state prisons that would make, of course everybody knew about the license plate thing. The old, adage or whatever, the old joke or whatever about the license plate deal. But what they didn't have was legislation in place and have states that were advocating for corporations to come. So you used to have states would compete for corporate business by giving tax breaks and giving them the land basically, for free, or giving them big breaks on the land, on the taxes or whatever, and giving them all kind of breaks that they could give them so they would come, and then they figure, well, we'll create so many jobs, we'll create so much traffic to this area, we'll build so many businesses around it to support it, the tax revenues, this is how we're going to generate funds. So the corporation could basically, come here and basically, work for free other than the overhead for their employees that they have to pay, their insurances and, all this type of stuff, associated overhead charges or what have you. But the corporations want to take that a step further. It's not enough to just get good breaks on the deals, on the taxes, get away from, I know when the Japanese companies, car companies start coming here and building their plants in the South, and BMW, I think, built one in Georgia, and Nissan and Toyota started building in America. And then they could compete in NASCAR, and then they could also other standards, crash standards and safety standards that they didn't have to meet because they were no longer actual imports. So these are all things that they do to avoid fees and costs and cut their costs so they can increase their profits. They're not inventing a new product. They're not refining the delivery of the product. They're not, I guess they do that as well, but that's not the huge way that they get money right off the bat. And they're not refining like their services in some way where they can just generate more and more or give a better product, something they can ask more money for, or something that is more efficiently created. They do all of these things. But the number one easiest way to do it is to take it from being paid union labor, especially middle-class wage labor, and just make it slave labor. So you got Reagan, 129,000, Bush, 243, Clinton, 277,000. And then you got the private prisons that already come up in that time, 83 through 89. They're in place. They got some facilities built up. They bought some land. They're building. They're expanding their operations. They're getting ready to take these people in. Send them on in here. Okay, we got all these new crime laws now. All these new crime laws in place. All these new, the 100-to-1 sentencing statute. Who gave that to us? Bill Clinton. 100-to-1 cracked it. Oh, we're going to put these Negroes in this prison till they die. He's got to be one of the greatest slave plantation. He's the freaking Calvin Candy of modern times. Just a smooth and southern drawl, and he loved the sisters and all of it. I mean, he's like these Leo DiCaprio in the Django movie or whatever. If you really look at what he did. So they built up the private prison situation. So like I said, this is a chess game. So NAFTA and GATT sent the jobs out because if they had said to you in 1993, in 1994, look, America, we're tired of paying all this money for your damn wages. We love the fact that you all got your boats and everybody got an RV And everybody's breaking sales records for all kind of major purchases, and sales records breaking out. Everybody's getting money. When I used to sell cars, man, them guys, that's where they made their fortunes, was in that 90s. I'm talking about millions of dollars. I'm not joking around and telling you, oh, yeah, these guys got a nice house and got a pretty wife or something. I'm talking about millions of dollars. These guys came out in the 2000s and tried to they bought the dealership out. They made that much money during that decade. The 90s was flowing with the cash. And what they wanted to do to get more cash was go from having an American workforce that needs $40,000, $50,000 a year at the time and needs full benefits and needs all of these associated costs to, just send that over to Bangladesh, man. Seriously. We can make the same thing in Thailand, dude. Really. Indonesia is a nice country. It really is. We can go over there and, just put it on a boat. Our cost for shipping it back over here is still going to be cheaper than our cost for having 10,000 Americans build it and sell it right here in America. It's just no. So let's take down all the tariffs. Let's take down all the rules and regulations that make it to where it's hard for these other companies to sell their stuff here. We're the number one market. And let's make it where they can sell all their cheap stuff here, and let's make it where we make all the cheap stuff over there and then bring it back here and sell it. But really, it's a long-term game, because the idea was never for that to be something they sustained. They just wanted to find a way to get the jobs out of here that you would accept. Because you wouldn't have accepted it if abolitionists had told you about slavery in the 90s. You wouldn't have accepted that. You would have fought that. You would have, what the hell? Slavery? If we still had militant music, Public Enemy pumping, X-Clan pumping, Ice Cube was on his first 3 or 4 albums, he pumping it out. I mean, I'm just being very straightforward, serious with you. If you don't know where I'm coming from, then I'm sorry you missed out on it. But there was a time all through the 90s, the Million Man March, seriously? Do you really think you're going to get 1 million men to come to D.C. and listen to Farrakhan or anybody else now? There was something in the spirit of the people and in the country. The people were still not as broken down as they have become now. We got to raise that back up. In those 90s, had they just vacated all those jobs, Whirlpool, Eureka, I don't know, hell, you name them, all of them, whoever, all these appliance companies, the paper companies, textile companies, chemical companies, I mean, whatever, all these people are working in the prisons now. Walmart, McDonald's, Applebee's, Burger King, Wendy's, Verizon, Sprint, Victoria's Secret. These are all jobs people had. There were thousands of people that worked at the factory that made the McDonald's uniforms in the 90s. Those people had regular middle-class jobs. Their children went to good schools, and they were able to fund the schools with their tax money because they had good money they could pay to live and pay taxes. It was nice neighborhoods. And set up college funds for the kids, and they went on into schools when people still got scholarships because they went to school and learned something and had good grades and could get scholarships instead of having to just buy degrees back in those days. That was reality, but now those jobs are in the prisons. They sent them out so you'd forget about them. You wouldn't even feel like you could get it. You didn't believe you could have that job anymore. Damn Indian. I called the customer service and I don't even know what the guy's saying. You got the comedians in on it. They make jokes about it. We got TV shows and movies. You see how propaganda works? We bought it because they sold it to us. They sold it to you. It became a running line on commercials. You called and you couldn't understand the guy, what he was saying. You didn't think about the fact that your wife don't have a job no more. Now you got to figure out how to get some overtime from the job you barely holding on to. Yeah, you thought about it, but what do you think you could do? These people are in India. You're not going to India to fight nobody. If they had took your job from you and put it in the state penitentiary down the road, you would have been at the prison kicking somebody's ass. Plain and simple. Am I lying? Am I lying on you right now, Mr. American, Mrs. American, strong, stand up for what's right, righteous person? If they had taken your job from you that you've been on for 20 years, and you're halfway to your retirement, and you got the mortgage, and the kids are out the house, and you got the RV, and everything's looking good. You got your colon check. Everything's clear, man. I'm living the way I'm supposed to live. God loves me. I'm special. And if they plucked you out of that job and took that $65,000 that you raised up to over 20 years, took that $72,000. When you and your wife filed taxes and y'all combined income was $137,000 and y'all living the dream, y'all was at $168,000, y'all was at $200,000. Oh my God! See, this is what America was, and they took those jobs away and sent them overseas, and you didn't fight because they didn't take those jobs and give them to people in prison, which is where they're at now. They came back. If they had gave that job to DeAndre, to Tyrone, in 96, you would have been going apeshit. You would have went off if Bill Clinton took your job at AT&T and gave it to some street Negro, cornrow drug dealer to improve his situation so you don't have to sell drugs no more and just give him the job. Civil War would have broke out. Even if they took it and gave it to him in prison and told you, well, we don't care, we're getting slave labor, you would have created civil war. But they gave it to some foreign people that you'll never see. And without the military sending you over there, you would never go fight them. You just talk trash here and listen to Rush Limbaugh make millions of dollars for selling advertising on his 2 hours or 5 hours or whatever he got to talk crazy. And you listen to Rush and you get over it and you go find another job and then you get a side job and then you learn how to do something else you always want to do and you make it somehow. But those jobs are back and they're in prisons now. So this is the matriculation of democracy and justice and freedom and liberty, American style. That's all I'm doing. It's just giving you a narrative of what goes down in America, how we get down here. So anyway, we're back to the current situation that we're facing. We're not talking about the past so much now. Now we're looking at our current situation. And our current situation is pretty screwed up. Chicago is dealing with a lot right now with the new mayor or returning of the same mayor. And since he's come back in, he's approved this reparations that they want to give for what John Burge did. So I'll just read you that, and then we'll go right into the other story talking about the young brother that was killed in the $5 million that resulted. Let me see if you can hear this. No, you cannot hear that. Okay. So Mayor Rahm Emanuel announced Tuesday that the city has reached an agreement to provide a sweeping package of reparations to victims of a notorious Chicago police commander who for decades ran a torture ring against suspects. Police officers under former Chicago Police Commander John Burge used electrical shock, burning, and mock executions to elicit confessions from suspects, mostly African American, from the early 70s through the early 90s. The statute of limitations ran out on his alleged crimes, however, but Burge was convicted in 2010 of perjury in a civil proceeding for lying about the torture that he oversaw. Burge was released from prison to a halfway house in October after serving less than 4 years in prison. He was released from the halfway house earlier this year, 2015. Burge still receives a pension for his years on the force. John Burge's actions are a disgrace to Chicago, to the hardworking men and women of the police department, and most importantly to those he was sworn to protect, Rahm Emanuel said. Today we stand together as a city and try to right those wrongs, and to bring this dark chapter of Chicago's history to a close. The deal, which will include creation of a $5.5 million fund for individuals who can prove they were victims of Burge, was announced just as the city council committee was set to convene a hearing to discuss creating a $20 million fund to benefit Burge victims who were unable to sue because the statute of limitations ran out. Did you just see what he just did? See, I'm thankful. I'm thankful for the bridling of my tongue. I know I've gone off here recently, and I do think about these things. I care. I flip out or whatever. I broke my word. I take that to heart. I made a promise to a personal friend of mine that I was going to continue to working on my book and produce a chapter to be evaluated, and I didn't make it by my deadline of Monday. I've been working on some other stuff to get the radio program up and going, and just other things I got going on, and I just didn't make it. So I felt bad. I still feel bad because I gave my word I'd do that, and I didn't do it. And the same thing I did to you. I promised that this would be a family-friendly, a family-friendly broadcast at all times. I'm going to watch it, and I'm not going to sing. And I broke down. I apologize. I'm not perfect. Keep working with me. I'm going to keep working with you. But right now, I just did it because I almost let it out, but I held it. So see, I'm back on the right track. So support me in my effort to bridle my tongue. Because when I read that Rahm Emanuel is playing this hero role, I can see him standing there proud of himself in his nutty little suit, in his little man shoes, and he stands there proud at the podium on his step stool and elevated heels, and he says, we're going to set up a fund because I want to take care of this problem. And I'm so glad you reelected me and you have faith in me to take care of this situation. And all these wonderful people that work for the police department and these hardworking people in this city deserve better than what this man did to us. So now, all these years later, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to do... Oh, no. It has nothing to do with the fact that the city council was about to set up a $20 million fund. That has nothing to do with why I'm here at this press conference today, jumping in line ahead of them to cut this right on out. No, we don't need to give them $20 million. I mean, I think you're reaching a little high to give people that you stole 20, 30, 40 years of their lives, people that you beat, you literally smashed their balls with hammers, you literally fried them with electrical cables, set them on fire, waterboarded, tortured, beat, probably raped, and some of them probably got murdered. We know about Holman Square, black site now, that you can't have any authority to go in here. People died there, like I just told Brother Robert on the call when we were talking about all the people dying in Milwaukee, which Chicago the same way. All them people dying there, we don't know. We saw what happened in Ferguson. The so-called riots kick off, they couldn't wait to start killing Negroes. In the news, there's drive-by shooting in Ferguson, believed to be gang-related. Then let one of these Negroes live, though, and tell you what happened. No, bro, that wasn't no damn. It was a drive-by shooting, but it wasn't no. It had nothing to do with no gang-related. Well, yeah, I guess it is gang, the gang of blue, because it was cops. And shout out to our young sister who took a bullet in the face and survived it. And the cops came in. And when they extracted the bullet from her forehead, the cops came in and took the bullet evidence, and that evidence is gone. Maya Otten White, Howard University graduate, peacefully protesting. She got shot in the face, and they reported it on the news as a drive-by, but Maya didn't die. Maya lived. And Maya said from the intensive care, that was the police that shot me in the face. Them same police that just came to my hospital room and took the evidence out the door with them. John Burge is the same guy. And here's Rahm Emanuel coming out and stealing the city's moment to actually try to do something remotely decent. Convene a hearing to discuss creating a $20 million fund to benefit the Burge victims, who they were unable to sue because you didn't believe them until the statute of limitations ran out. I don't want to rant because I don't have much time. I don't want to... People, if your blood starts to churn like mine does when you just see how impossible the situation is. Between 72 and 91, more than 100 people, almost all African-American men, said they were subjected to horrific abuse by police officers under Burge's command. The Chicago Police Department Review Board ruled in 1993 that he had used torture and he was fired. But he was not criminally convicted of a damn thing. So you wanted to argue with me about voting for Hillary Clinton. You want to argue with me about the vote, and we're going to do with the vote. Vote your way out of that then. 1993, biggest day. They fired him. The review board. You want oversight? You got oversight. You want reforms now because that's what they're offering is reforms. And what are they talking about? Oversight. Review boards, special prosecutors, They already have the mechanisms in place. They don't use them. And you can't force them. By complying and going along with what they want you to do, they're going to lead you into a place where you're ineffective and you're impotent. You can't do anything to really affect change, following what they're telling you to do. We told you yesterday on the program. The so-called forefathers that built the country were more free, and they were pissed off enough about the tyranny that they started the whole damn country. You couldn't go kicking in people's doors. No-knock warrants and coming in with weapons and shooting up the house and killing the dog and shooting the baby in the face and throwing flashbang grenades and coming in ninjas and SWAT teams and all this. You couldn't do that jive. That was illegal then. How the hell do we go from setting up a country because the law that's in place then is being observed, and they still got pissed off enough to start a country based on what was happening to them, to the country that they created? Now we live in it. And the law and the respect for the law and the respect for the people that they had then, that was enough to piss them off to start it. The people now that live in it, the descendants, get pissed on 100 times worse. And we can't wait till the new episode of Scandal comes on, though. I mean, I hear these things, but they just remastered Seinfeld. Whole new DVD box set. I got to get over to Best Buy. I'm on Amazon. I'm going to just zone out. I'm going to veg out and just watch 77 straight hours of Seinfeld reruns. I'm on Netflix. I'm going to just veg out and just watch entire series of something I missed years ago. I'm going to watch The Wire, start to finish, the whole series for the next week. You won't hear from me. I'm going to be entertaining myself. That's our problem. We keep checking freaking out. I was discussing this with a friend the other day. In this faith, there's a term called Antichrist. And people tend to think that when you say that word, it's some monster gonna come like a Godzilla movie and attack Jesus as he comes on his cloud, and there's gonna be this big fight of the Antichrist versus Jesus and all of this or whatever. Getting into the etymology of the actual word that's in Hebrew scriptures that is termed the Antichrist now. The actual word means instead of Christ. And the teaching is that, and this doesn't just apply to Bible believers or Christ. I'm not trying to recruit anybody. I'm not going into a religious narrative. What I'm trying to explain to you is that idea, you got to see deeper than just going to church or believing T.D. Jakes or whatever your hang-up is. We're not talking about that. The point is that it's an idea of righteousness. It's an idea of right. And the thing that will conflict with it to destroy it is not the idea of open conflict and wrong, open fighting with to dismantle it. The thing that will be at war with it, the Antichrist, is the instead of right. It's not the direct wrong, it's the instead of right. And if you let that sink in, you'll understand what I'm trying to say. What we're facing in a lot of cases is not necessarily the straight up wrong. What's killing us is the instead of right. See, you're not wrong for watching 5 weeks straight of Seinfeld remastered DVDs. You're not wrong for that. But it's instead of doing the right thing, which is abolitionism. It's like my son comes in from school. He's got homework to do. He's not doing the wrong thing if he doesn't jump right on it, which I would prefer he did, and I instruct him to do that. But if he comes in, eats a snack, takes his shoes off, kind of catches his breath, I can't fault him. Because that's what we all want to do. Is just, okay, I've been there all day. I got up early. Just give me a minute to unwind. I'm going to do the homework so I don't beat him up on it. But if he continues to do instead of the right thing, and it doesn't get done, it's just as wrong as if he just said, I ain't doing it. And if we continue to not do abolitionism, it's just as wrong as saying I'm for slavery. We've got to turn it around somehow to where instead of becomes, no, I'm absolutely doing what I know needs to be done. We're not in a position where we can keep doing instead ofs. While we was instead ofing and headed to the lake, and instead of and buying new boats, and instead of and buying new bikes, and instead of and buying RVs and buying up everything, and material consumption was off the chain all through the 90s. I just showed you, while we was instead of, Reagan, Bush, Clinton exploded the slave population and already had a safety net set up for themselves to catch all of those hundreds and hundreds of thousands of brothers and sisters that were snatched out of our communities. I already gave you those numbers, 129,000. The next 4 years, 243,000. The next 4 years, 277,000 people snatched away. So when that happens, they already had it in place where they were going to send them. And we don't have in place how we're going to get them back yet. We have become complacent and therefore complicit in the crime of people snatching. Abolitionism is what we are here to do to get our people back and to stop them from steadily taking our people. Eric Holder's lying to you when he says the federal numbers have dropped for the first time in 32 years. It's a lie, dude, basically. He's instead of telling you the truth. He's not straight up lying, but he's not telling you the truth. So he's instead of. He's operating in the spirit of the Antichrist. He's telling you that the numbers are lower because he sent them to private prisons. California is instead of. California is not actually lowering the number of people that they've got incarcerated by the state, but not in the state, because they're sending them to Oklahoma, to Arkansas, to Mississippi, to Arizona, and they're still collecting on the slave labor profits generated by the corporations. People, get with the program. Speaking of the program, this one is going to soon be coming to an end. I've gone on and on about everything I could. Laquan McDonald, 17 years old, shot 16 times while he was walking away from the police. Also in Chicago, this was October of last year, a 911 caller reported that someone was trying to break into vehicles, according to the Chicago Tribune. Corporation counsel Stephen Patton said that McDonald had walked away when officers ordered him to drop his knife. There are some reports that he had apparently slashed a tire, or they didn't know if he was trying to break into vehicles or if he had cut a tire on. We don't get the evidence. What did he actually do? 6 officers were said to have surrounded McDonald with their guns drawn while waiting for backup, armed with tasers. See, these cops didn't carry tasers. And this kid's out here slashing tires, damn it. So get your weapons, get your lead ready. Before backup could arrive, one of the officers opened fire on McDonald, striking him 16 times. Police union rules prevented the officer from being identified unless he was charged, but a spokesperson for the Fraternal Order of Police later claimed that McDonald had lunged at the officer with a knife. The city panel of aldermen was told the McDonald family that they would argue that the dash cam video showed that the teen was actually walking away when he was shot to death. They also noted that the family's attorney would question why none of the other officers opened fire. So the video surfaced, and it showed what they said it was going to show, and it was just like the situation with Brother Walter Scott. The cops were shown shooting this black boy all in his back 16 times. The autopsy report shows the entrance wounds in the back, exit wounds all through his chest and his arms or whatever. So they recommended that the city approve a $5 million settlement, noting that the family had initially sought $16 million. So here we got Chicago with Rahm Emanuel giving $5 because the city was going to go for $20. Here we got Laquan McDonald, our unexplainable Black Death profile for the day. Family seeking 16. City steps in. Let's give you $5 so you shut up and go away, and we don't have to show this tape. This is what's going on. People, abolitionism is a reason for revolution, so you can finally know peace. It says Max Parthas, and you'll be hearing him say that tonight because we're going in tonight. I'm fired up now. So check us out tonight. New Abolitionist Radio. Peace to the abolitionists, death to the oppressors, and we coming for you. I'm out.
We do whatever we do to survive, bro.
Drop it. The rhythm